What's good, homies? Welcome back to episode 9, part 2 of our age. Um, what do we call it? We called it something really clever.
Despised for your youth.
Despised for your youth.
The Bible's clever. You can thank God for that one.
Series theme, a bobber.
Good job, ESV and God.
Not in that order.
Not in that, yes.
Yikes!
I didn't
Yeah.
say them in any particular order. Just that's the way they came out.
No, that's true. But welcome to the podcast.
Sam's clearly taken horse tranquilizers since last
This is last
recording.
episode.
It's getting late.
Give him a
man.
minute. He'll get warmed up. We'll get him back into it.
slowly. But yeah, take it away, Chris. What are we talking about today?
Oh, me. Oh, well.
Delegation.
Whoa.
Yeah. Just kind of continuing the last episode where we awkwardly left off and transitioned. We were kind of getting into age, what kind of role that can play. And I think we started to touch on how that comes into play in ministry and just get into that a little bit more. And the question that I kind of wrote out that Sam really liked, which is why I thought you were going to read it, was, do you think like younger people or students should be held to the same or similar expectations as older people, or vice versa in some cases, you know? Like, should you expect older people to be held to whatever standard you're holding your students to? And it's also kind of vague, but if you think of any specific circumstances or ministries in particular.
I mean, the first thing that I thought of was like language. So like, which is so interesting because so if you think about it, like if there was a student in youth ministry, you're like, hey, don't swear. That's bad.
Mm.
And then like your youth leaders are like, no, like and swear all over the place. Like
Mhm.
or like not even youth leaders, just like other adults.
Right.
So like I think like that is a good example of what you're asking. I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it is.
But then you can also take it to conduct, right? Like if you expect the younger kids to act mature and like not like be disrespectful, if your peers or the very teachers that are doing that are being disrespectful to each other, then what does that show the kids?
Mm-hmm. And I think the youth leader was kind of a bad example of that.
Mhm.
I think. I mean, yes,
Mm.
but I think it was we're gonna get into like some mud if we continue down that road. But
Yeah.
But yes, like
Mhm.
yeah, you should be holding the same people to the same expectations.
Yeah. Actually, I kind of like that you said other adults.
Yeah.
Because, like, if I'm getting bothered when my students are swearing, but not when, like, my pal Mike is cursing up a storm. I know a lot of Mikes, so that was a good name to go with.
Oh.
Huh.
But, yeah, like, why is that not bothering me as much? Like, should I not be holding several mics to the same standard as my students, even though it's a different context or relationship, you know?
I mean, and I think that's kind of like human nature of like we want to draw that line of like, oh, once you're, 19.5,
Yeah.
you're allowed to swear and it is acceptable.
Yeah.
Or like we can think of a bunch of other examples, but like we immediately jump to that like, oh, we need to make a line. Or as long as I'm not in church, it's like okay if like someone says this or does this, or even if I can say this or do this.
Right.
So
Yeah. Or like, yeah, if we're at a certain level of our relationship, I can let
Yeah.
that go, which is true. I don't know
that's-
if that's right or not.
Yeah, I agree with you because I have like the closer I get to someone, I tend to be a bit more laxed, right? Especially in the ministry setting. I think it's an idea of like understanding, right? I think we talked about this in a previous episode where we were talking about the idea of like what is okay to share, right? And I think this comes into age, right? Like, and a bit of wisdom. If you determine and you discern that the individual is wise enough to accept and hear the thing that you want to share with them, and like they'll use that information for good.
Mhm.
That's a buggo.
yeah.
Then I think that's like, oh, okay, like that's where like age might not matter, right? I think about like my middle school students from my summer camp. When they're in 6th grade, I was a lot more stern with them. But once they hit their 8th grade and as it hit the summer of their 8th grade going to 9th grade, that's when I was a lot more lax. Like, that's my kids at some point. Like, we were on a field trip. They hated the field trip. We were at Old Sturbridge Village. If you don't like Amish people or whatever they are,
Yeah.
just don't go.
Right.
But what we did was, in order to make it fun, I was like, I know you guys don't like it, so why don't we just find a secluded like place to just like mess around and just blow up stuff or whatever. And lo and behold, we found like a stream where we just hung out, and there's like it was like a little bridge, and there was a stream underneath. So then like they took off their shoes and like rolled up their pants, and then they just like jumped in. Oh, I mean, it was the summers that were just shorts, but like we all jumped in, just hang out and just like chilling. We just sat there. We didn't even go explore the village because we were just like, we're just gonna find a waterfall or whatever. And that was because I trusted them over the time, and I knew like they would be able to handle that.
Yeah. And then like, kind of going back to your example. That's something you would say. To kind of go back to your example, like, it's also, I think, like, you get to know somebody better. You develop a different relationship. And at a certain point, it's like, I don't want to babysit you.
Yeah.
Like, I think by this point, you know where I stand on whether or not that's acceptable. And I'm kind of leaving it up to you also.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know how much of that has to do with age versus, like, specific relationship or circumstance. But like, I think, like, at this point with our youth ministry, like, by this point, all the students know you probably shouldn't use certain words. You should probably treat people a certain way, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
And it's like the idea of like trusting them that they will be mature enough to understand that they too are an example for the other people, right?
yeah.
Because people start looking up to them. They set the culture. They set the precedent. Then should they not also just uphold it?
Right. Which is straight out of Timothy
Yeah.
right there. Like,
Indeed.
Tim, good job.
Timmy. We're on
I
a
know
first
you
name
didn't write
basis.
it, Tim, but you're a good guy. That was always confusing for me for a while.
Right.
What?
That it was
Oh,
like
like-
Paul.
Like,
Oh,
he
his
wrote
letters
it-
to
Yeah,
Timothy.
yeah. Like, that should be explained. I mean, it is a lot, but like,
Yeah. But like,
someone should write that.
I mean, the fact that he even wrote a letter to Timothy saying such things, like this is an older peer encouraging a younger individual. Like I think that's something that we didn't touch that much on. Like the fact that he wrote this was to encourage him in
That's
whatever
true.
ministry he was doing. Right? It's the level of like, I trust and know that you are wise and that you have been gifted in so many ways that I want you to flourish and do well in wherever you are.
But like on the flip side, it was also like a letter to the people going like, wait, no, this guy's legit.
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
Like, let him do this.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So like it was like on one side it was like, yeah, like you got this, Timothy and Titus, like
Mhm.
like more power to you. But on the other side, it's like, wait, no, guys, like I entrusted them.
Yeah.
yeah. Which is funny because, like, you know, Paul's more than capable of scolding people. And, like, he
He's quite
chose.
good at it.
Yeah, quite good, actually. But he chose not to do it in this case. I mean, I'm sure there were points where he had to be like, Timothy, cut it out, you know, like, knock it off. But, like, he could have written a harshly worded letter to them. But instead, yeah, it's like lifting up these younger guys.
Where does knowledge come into play with the term of age, right? Because I was trying to think of the context of Timothy, right? Like, if this is a man who's trying to evangelize to people in the city, they might be older, right? And then they're like, well, what do you know that I don't, that entitles you to tell me these things? And in this case, it's the gospel, right? He is sharing and talking about the gospel. But
Like, it doesn't matter how young you are. You know the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're out to do, is share it.
yeah. Which I think is so wild that people look down on him even though they knew nothing about the subject that he was talking about.
I mean, like, like we do that now. I mean, like, for some reason, jump to like, if we met like this old scientist who like with a beard and like white hair. Do scientists have beards? I don't know.
Sometimes.
Might be a lab hazard.
The IT guy at our school has super long, like I'm talking like butt length
Oh, you're talking
long
about a
hair.
school.
That's my life now. I'm calling it. I'm calling it now. 2 weeks from now, I'm going to talk. All I'm going to talk about is college ministry and the school. Coincidentally, the two things that I might be working with. Oh, just kidding. I am working. With.
Yeah, that's official. It's official.
Yeah, college coordinator.
I'm the only person who doesn't have a coordinator title.
You're pretty coordinated, though.
Really? You ever seen me play any sport ever?
No, you refuse to play volleyball.
Yeah, I'm so bad at volleyball.
I love volleyball.
I'm so bad. It's like sports. Like this is my scale of badness. Like sports. What do you go up or down? I'm worse at volleyball than any other sport.
Really? I'm not great, but I just love
I've
it.
never seen you shoot a basketball. In my
Yeah,
life.
but I'm also really bad at shooting basketball.
Same. I'm terrible.
I was just, I'll like look presentable or like wear nice shoes. And
Actually, that's a good example because the second day I showed up to Hub, some middle schoolers asked me to play basketball, and they assumed I'd be really good because I'm tall. And I started playing, and they're like, maybe you should just stand by the basket and like just have your arms up, because I was just atrocious. I'm so bad at basketball, and anyone in the hub can
Stop.
Yeah, like basically, yeah. But they assume I guess I was thinking age, but that's more height than anything. But like, but like, I guess they probably figure because I'm tall and I'm older, it's like, oh, this guy will be a pro. But like, no. And anyone who's seen me play can definitely attest to the fact that I'm terrible.
You're definitely better at basketball than I am, but that's okay.
Really?
Yeah,
Oof.
I'm bad.
I mean, you're closest to the net.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess just gravity more than anything.
Yeah, and put it.
Not even gravity. Yeah.
Anyways, basketball.
Basketball.
What was that?
We were talking about knowledge and age.
Right.
I mean, knowledge and wisdom. We talked a lot about wisdom last episode, and like, of course, they're different, but they're like.
What is the Webster Dictionary of wisdom?
Was that a command for me to go
I
look
don't
up the
know.
Webster
I mean,
Dictionary of
Hey Alexa,
Oh.
what is the definition of wisdom?
Wisdom is usually defined as the quality or state of being wise, knowledge of what's true or right coupled with just judgment as to action, sagacity, discernment, or insight. For more, ask me to give you more definitions for wisdom.
I like how one of it was to be why, like,
Right.
the ability, yeah, it's like the ability of, whatever.
It was like to conduct yourself well, or
It's
like know how to conduct yourself.
It's funny because we talked about, it said the word keywords that we already said: knowledge, conduct yourself well. The last one I heard was discernment or insight, which I think is very fascinating.
That's the key, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you hear about that all the time in sermons. Like, you can know what the Bible says inside and out, like the Pharisees, but you need a pharisectomy.
Oh my gosh!
I love that.
Completely forgot about
Whew,
that.
that was
Last
I
great.
was
Sun-
not in the room when that happened.
Yeah, you were in the room for that, but last Sunday, our pastor used the term pharisectomy.
I love that.
He was,
That was so
in terms of like how we all have like a sinful side that we need to root out the Pharisee within us, and he called it a pharisectomy. I woke up for that.
I love that. But it's like true. It's like they knew the word, the scripture,
did.
but what were they doing with it? They're just setting laws in place. They're actually doing the opposite of like what. Like, it wasn't setting anyone free. It was.
Oh my gosh! Just thinking about that, right? Like, one thing that Jesus got challenged all the time was like the idea that he worked on the Sabbath, right? Like, he healed someone on the Sabbath.
Right.
And they're trying to use that as a trap, saying you're working. But in reality, it's just like, like, why? Like, rest in itself is not the idea of not doing anything. It's the idea of, like, giving yourself that break and breathing room to know who you like are trusting in. But then he flipped that on its side, then used that as an example of saying, I'm wise enough to discern that this person needs the immediate help that I want to provide them.
Right.
And even though it is supposedly on the day of rest, like,
Imagine if your
Yeah.
rest cost somebody their life.
Yeah.
You just chose not to do something.
Yeah, no doctors don't work on Saturdays anymore.
Yeah, right.
We don't save people on Saturdays.
ER is closed. Good luck.
that would be so sad. Oh.
Hey, you went to the hospital on a Saturday.
I did.
Did you?
That's how I got the scar.
Oh, I think it was a Sunday at the time, though. So
No, it was a Saturday night.
No, but it was
Oh, it
like
was
2
a
a.m.
Sunday.
Sam would have been
Wow.
saved. I didn't know where the camera was for a second.
You literally have your own camera.
Couldn't find it.
Yeah. Thank you, ER. Because I'm looking at the first question that Chris had. I was talking about like the disrespect of like being disrespected because of your age. And you talked about like the property managers like not like listening or doing stuff for you in that aspect. I mean, that's a sign of disrespect in your opinion, yeah?
I mean, yes.
Okay.
Like, sometimes I forget disrespect is like perspective.
It's
Like it's a weird concept for
Disrespect.
me.
yeah.
What?
What are you saying?
I just got so confused. So sometimes I think like never mind. So it was disrespectful to me. Yes, like I felt disrespected.
yeah.
It was like, oh, you are not like you haven't reached this point enough to be trusted with this.
Mm.
And like that's what I think a lot of life is, right? I think if we're honestly disrespected, it's when like someone goes like, oh, like you want this, but we don't think you're good enough,
Mm.
right? like we don't think, honestly, like maturity, or I mean, I guess sometimes qualifications and that kind of stuff. But like, so one of the biggest barriers in a lot of like getting opportunities is age or maturity. Whether or not they're separated or not is a different story, but stands in the way a lot of the time.
That's interesting that you talk about perspective, though, like how you perceive that. Because it's like, are they intentionally disrespecting you, or like we're showing you a lack of respect, or is it like this is a decision we've come to based on factors?
Right. So like I struggled with it, whether it was objectively disrespectful.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if there's such a thing, but we're gonna pretend it is, for the sake of this point I'm making. But so I didn't know if it was like from a third party perspective, I guess. Anyways, but like I don't know if like it would be a considerable disrespectful action of not letting me do this. I guess justifiable sometimes outweighs the disrespect of the individual, which in some cases is not good, but in this case I think was like. I can be upset if I don't get a job doesn't mean sometimes that's unjust. Right. Sometimes that's justifiable. So like that's another whole level of that I didn't even want to get into. But yeah, like I like looking at the situation, I go, okay, that's understandable. I don't think they were causing me any disrespect.
Right.
But I still felt disrespected.
Yeah.
Never thought of it like that.
Yeah, me neither. That's a weird thought.
It's funny I like the perspective thing because the example that came to my head was that I was disrespected for not because of, so it was because of my age, but my perspective was that because I'm in a position of leadership, I have been disrespected by my peers because of my age. So like I was a co-director of a summer camp at the age of from the ages of 20 to 22. And I had peers, or I had counselors that I oversaw that were significantly older than me. I recall this one individual, she was 40 years old at the time. The average counselor age in this group is maybe 21. And I remember I felt disrespected by her because I felt like she was looking down on me because of my age. She was like, "Oh, like what do you know, right?" And I think for me, then I in return disrespected her by accident because I, as a young one, didn't respect her age, right? It was just like, oh, like
you're just some old person.
Yeah, you're some old person. And this is also when I realized, like, just because you're old does not mean, like, the whole idea of, like, the concept of you're not mature or, like, you don't have everything together, right? Like, she was 40 years old. She could not handle 2 deadlines that I presented to her, which horrified me. I was like, what is going on? And then when I brought it up to her, I was like, I wasn't even asking aggressively. I was just like, oh, yeah, like, you know, how's those things come on? She just burst into tears. And I kid you not, she collapsed on the couch that was nearby, like dramatically, just sobbing. I was so confused.
That's unstable.
Yeah, I mean, she was fine for the rest of the summer. I think the time of life was super stressful for her, like moving to a new place and everything. I didn't know any of that. And I think that was for me. It was like it was a moment of growth, like what we talked about in previous episodes. Like that moment allowed me to realize I need to be more wary of not only my perspective and like my presentation of like my questions and actions, but also being wary of where she was as like someone else, right? Just because you are older doesn't mean you have everything together, and I don't think you ever will in your life. You just have to accept that. But yeah,
I don't want to accept that.
What, that you're never gonna have everything together?
Yeah. I mean, I think actually I have accepted that, but it just sounds so defeating when you say it out loud.
My perspective is this: like every new addition or every gain that you make, you will always find something that you'll complain or like be
right. You're never gonna reach like the peak.
Yeah,
you always take 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
True, and that's like a dance. It's the dance of life.
It's all the factors, right?
I don't know where I was going with that. I'm so tired.
That's an outro right there. It's funny you say that because like it was the idea. I had a friend. He wants to be a pastor, but he's working as like a youth director for like a secular organization, and he complains about it all the time. And then he like talked to another peer. He was like, "Hey, like, you know, maybe if I wasn't," and the peer was our English pastor. He's like, "Oh, maybe if I worked in ministry, I probably wouldn't complain as much." And then the pastor was like, "Are you kidding?
Oh yeah.
You'll be complaining about just as many things that you do about a secular organization." We are disgruntled, broken sinners. We will always have something to complain about.
Oh, absolutely.
If not more.
I was gonna say, like, as soon as you're more passionate about something, you're just gonna get more upset about it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, Enterprise will sometimes, rub me the wrong way, or I'm like, what the heck is going on here? But like, I'm never like, what? Like, I'm never like so mad because something shady or like weird or destructive happens at Enterprise. But like, I could get so angry because there's a table in the wrong spot at first base.
Right.
Like, that is something I've been upset about in the past. But like, there's a level of like, I care so much more about this, and I have higher expectations there. But like, that's a part of it.
No, yeah, exactly with this job. Like, you guys witnessed me when I came back. I was like all brain dead and like complaining about so many things. But I'm just really inspired by the individuals who run the show. Right, like despite like the lack of like overall organization. I mean, it's the first week, right? But like, they're constantly working around the clock trying to find solutions. And of course, I'll complain about the problems at hand, but like, they're finding solutions, and I respect that to such a high end.
Yeah.
Like,
And like, why would you if you didn't care? Like, why would you
Yeah.
respect that so much if it was like, oh,
yeah.
whatever?
So like, it's so fascinating. I can't. I'm so hung up on what you said. It's like, it's all perspective.
Life is a bad game of perspective.
It really is. It really is.
And I feel like that's almost what Paul's kind of saying to some extent in his letter to Timothy. I mean, I don't want to just go ahead and summarize the entire letter to Timothy like that, but it is like how do you perceive this kid essentially walking into you and preaching to you?
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, Tyler said it himself, right? It was like a letter of encouragement to Timothy, but then also like a backup letter for Timothy to all the other elders. It was like, yo, bruh, like check him out. Like he's legit, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, and with age also comes the idea of that. So also using age to your advantage, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you use it to support other people? Because if there are people who look up to you, then that's where the power of delegation comes into play, right? It's like, oh, this person, if they perceive you as someone who's more mature or like a lot wiser, then they will, your affirmation and your what's the one, your endorsement is
your
what's
counsel.
it supports the individual who is trying to get moving on.
Yeah. Like if you know how you're perceived,
Yeah.
the better you understand that. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I think sometimes when I train new people at work, like just because I'm older, they immediately think like, oh, this guy probably knows a little bit what he's talking about. And then they work with me for a shift and they're like, oh, never mind. But
Friendlies, what?
right. Ooh.
So that's why this establishment's like this.
That's why everything's on fire.
Ice cream makes a meal. What?
I should have ice cream today.
I did. Yeah, I regret it.
Dude,
I'm gonna
last
be
week
honest.
we literally recorded an episode about not eating ice cream. You know what I'm excited about after the end of this episode?
Yeah.
Eating ice cream.
Eating some ice cream.
I was excited to make a comeback after that because Monday and Tuesday I hit the gym. I was feeling great. I ate a little bit better. I was ready to get on the podcast and be like, yo, I'm already turning things around. And then today I'm just like, I feel like death.
Yeah, you had Taco Bell when you got here
Yeah,
earlier.
the Taco Bell really just was not a good call.
I like hanging out with older people.
Yeah.
I
I live with somebody who's 3 times older than me, actually. More than that. More than 3 times older.
28. Oh, yeah, it is. Wow. Oh, wait, he's that old?
He's 85.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so.
He's in killer shape, man.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
what the heck?
Oh, he's in better shape. The other day, he's like, I went for a hike and a swim. It's like, dude, I took a nap after like a 6-hour shift, dude.
What's it like to be like? I want to be. That's what I aspire to be. Like,
Yeah, and that's a kind of an age thing too. Like you assume because he's 85 that he's like decrepit and out of shape, and
he's like one of the most passionate, like on fire, like in good shape individuals you've ever met.
yeah. So I can go the other way too, and I've definitely been guilty of that. Because like even Friendly's, the restaurant I work at, I assume nobody out of the area is gonna not know what Friendly's is, but. Like it attracts a lot of old people just because they grew up with Friendlies, and so they walk in and you immediately start judging them based on certain things, you know, like oh that person has a walker, they don't want to sit way in the back, blah blah blah, among other things. But like then you talk to them, and you're like oh you're just a person, and I'm just making a judgment call based on the fact that you have an oxygen tank with you in a restaurant, you know.
I think for me, my problem's the opposite. Because you're older, I assume you are wiser, and I can learn so much from you. And that's
Right.
like in the case that does happen, right? Like
Yeah.
the paraprofessional coworker that she took me under her wing. She's 60 years old, doesn't look a day over 60, and she was like, "I'm going to teach you everything," and she did. And I love stuff like that, just like learning as much. My idea is like I love learning from older individuals and just like gleaning from their life. The bus driver around 65, I'm learning so much about just like kind of like how he wrestled with life and trying to understand things and everything. And it gives, I think for me, it's also the idea of like the older you are, I realize, oh, that person's so far down their timeline that if they're fine, I can also be fine too.
Yeah.
Not saying that their life is miserable and they're like, aha, it sucks for you, but like it's just like, oh, like they went through a lot of the similar things that I went through, and here they are, and
It's
I
more
wanna be like that.
perspective.
Yeah, it's more perspective. Yeah, I just like information gathering.
Yeah. And I always talk about how I'm super thankful for the choir. Like I was directing them, but mostly what that meant is like I picked out music, set up rehearsals, sent out emails, like the behind the scenes stuff that nobody really wanted to do. And like I have a music degree, so that helped too. But like I learned so much from them. You know, like they like even musically, like just the fact that I have a degree doesn't mean that half of them can't sing way better than me or and then like just so many of them, to still steal what you just said, took me under their wing and like helped me out in countless ways and like poured into my life and just helped me. And most of them are older, like 90% of the choir probably. They're retirement age or like middle age.
Yeah.
So.
I thought you were gonna say something.
Me too. You had that look.
I mean, so I was reading your last question a moment ago. We touched on it briefly a second ago, but I think like expectations versus snap judgments are like two different things, right? So the example of the walker I thought was very interesting. I went into server mode for a second. I was like, all right, what table's open is the closest to us?
Right, yeah.
Anyways, PTSD of restaurant industry right there.
I'm having dreams of serving like this. It's terrible.
How do you want your steak?
Sorry, I don't know why I thought that was so funny. How do you want your steak?
Just picturing like you're in like this fiery, like you're in hell. It's just you just hear medium well. I can't find the medium well button. Anyways,
they didn't ask me how I want my steak cooked at Applebee's.
They didn't. We're not going to talk about that. That was a disaster.
Yeah, they probably should have asked me how I wanted my chicken cooked, or if I wanted it cooked.
If you wanted your chicken.
If you wanted it cooked.
That was rough. Anyways.
Expectations.
Yeah, so
versus judgments.
Snap judgments, right? And so like that analogy of the woman and the walker and how like, yeah, after immediately jumping to that conclusion, I was like, oh, interesting. Like I would have been like, oh, like you're being compassionate. I think that camera stopped recording.
Oh, so set that up. You keep talking.
Like, I think you like were being compassionate and going like, oh, like we should try to seat this woman, right? And I don't think you were jumping to like a judgment per se. And of course that was an example.
Right.
But
that is a good point though, yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to be courteous, not make them walk a mile to sit down.
right. And so like I mean you have expectations of like, oh wait, clearly this woman has or man, I don't know why I thought woman. Maybe you said woman. But like has to like clearly has a walker for a reason, and so like we should accommodate that, right? We should work with that situation to figure that out. And the same thing with youth, right? Youth, right? Maybe they, don't understand certain concepts or don't have that life experience. Transforming that message into something that they can understand and can, make sense of.
Yeah.
Is like crucial.
So yeah, I know we didn't really finish up that conversation, but this is a game changer.
Is it? The stool's creaking.
Well,
now,
yeah,
it's
you
fine.
I can move and talk and like not worry. But just for the sake of time, I know this is a conversation we'll probably keep going down the road because age you can talk about on forever. But I think we should wrap this up for the sake of technical difficulties and batteries that are dying. So just to end off this talk one more time. Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers as an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. 1 Timothy 4:12.
And that camera died.
And the camera died.
So don't let your age be something that deters you from serving. Don't let your age be something that deters you from just speaking out in wisdom or in just truth. Be wary, though. Understand the concepts and just the different boundaries that are going on in these conversations. Understand that people may look down on you because of what the world tells you. But be brave. Share what you share. And if God is truly willing and telling you to share these things, then so be it, right? So that's our encouragement for you guys. Hope you guys enjoy this 2-part series. Maybe we'll have more about age down the road. Maybe we'll have an episode dedicated to the tangents of Tyler. That's a title in the workings. But yeah, so as we look into the camera.
That one died too.
Make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that little bell there.
Ding. Thank you.
Yeah, and just tell your friends. Tell a friend. Tell multiple friends.
Tell all your friends.
Share about us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And until then,
have a good one.
We out.